Chapter 14, the Digestive System and Nutrition, Screencast 4. Now, this particular screencast is going to focus on an overall introduction to nutritional habits and patterns. And the first thing I want to talk about are a number of decisions of behaviors that we make. And there are 4 of them. And these 4 behaviors play a very big role in determining our overall risk for lifestyle-related disorders, such as type 2 diabetes, heart disease, and so on. Unsurprisingly, the first is nutrition. What do we eat? So that's going to be a big one. Physical activity. How much physical activity are we getting? Are we meeting the 30 minutes daily recommended? Do we smoke? And do we drink? So those 4 behaviors overall really do play a role in our risk for developing diseases such as diabetes. And as I said, when we talk about nutrition, the overall science of food and eating, it really is an interaction between us and our relationship with food. Recently, myplate.gov, this is a customized approach to nutritional planning. And what it does, it basically divides food into 5 different groups. And what happens based on each group, there's recommendations on what to eat from each group. You can actually go to the web, choose myplate.org, and you'll be asked to input your age, gender, height, weight, and physical activity level. Make sure that you pay attention to the criteria for physical activity level. Most people have a tendency to overestimate. So that's an important caution to keep in mind when you're doing anything related to physical activity level. Here we can see the components of MyPlate. We see vegetables and fruits. The recommendation here is they should make up half your plate. Then we have grains and protein. Okay, and then once again, dairy. So together, we basically see all of these things. Now, grains, the goal is to make at least half of your grains whole grains. That's an important distinction to keep in mind when you're talking about protein. Notice they put protein, not meat. Plant-based protein is important when we look at what's actually being recommended through MyPlate. Now, these are some very general recommendations for a healthy diet, and none of this should be a surprise. Eat a wide variety of foods. Try to maintain a healthy body weight. Eat lots of fruits, vegetables, and whole grains. Consume sugar only in moderation. Consume salt and sodium in moderation. The recommendation is less than 2,300 milligrams, or about 1 teaspoon salt per day. And if you do drink alcoholic beverages, do so in moderation. Now, what we're going to take a look at next are the primary nutrients. So we introduced these previously way back when in chapter 3 or 2, okay, something way back when, all right? So let's start off with carbohydrates. And the role of carbohydrates within the body is to provide energy. When we look at our total caloric intake, 45 to 65% of calories should be carbohydrates. As we noted before, we've got simple carbohydrates, which are simple sugars, and then we have complex carbohydrates, starch, glycogen, and fiber. The emphasis should be put on starch and fiber, those complex or polysaccharides, shooting for whole foods because whole foods have these complex carbohydrates. And once again, those are very much preferred over those that are providing simple carbohydrates or the simple sugars. Now, when we talk about fat, fat has a really bad reputation. And in all honesty, we need to remember that fat is actually an essential nutrient. We need fat. Now, there are some fats that are bad, and I will heartily agree, saturated fat and trans fat. No good whatsoever associated with them, and they're very well known to increase the risk for heart disease. So saturated fats, these are going to be those fats that are actually solid at room temperature. So if we're talking about meat, dairy products, butter is a really good example. And these fats tend to raise the bad cholesterol, or the LDL. Unsaturated fats, now these are the good fats. Most of them are plant source, so we have olive oil, safflower oil, corn oil, canola oil, certain cold water fish, so things such as salmon, tuna, halibut, those fish that are primarily found in cold water regions, they are a very good source of omega-3 fatty acids, known to be heart healthy. Unsaturated fats have a tendency to lower the bad cholesterol and a reduced risk for heart disease. Now, trans fats, this is a man-made product. And what they've done is they've hydrogenated in oil. So what was once a liquid is now a partial solid. And examples would be margarine, so on. Trans fats were originally invented to increase the shelf life of baked goods. All right. Now, the problem here is trans fats raise LDL cholesterol. Now, when we talk about proteins, this is the most diverse, and proteins are made up of 20 different amino acids. 8 of them are known to be essential, which means we must get them from our diet. The remaining 12 can be produced by the body. Now, a complete protein is going to be something that has all of those amino acids. Most animal proteins are considered to be complete protein. Soy, so it is one of the few plant-based proteins. Quinoa is another. So quinoa and soy are examples of the only 2 complete plant-based proteins out there. And incomplete protein would be one that lacks one or more essential amino acids. This is the category that most plant proteins fall under. Here we can see a really good example of various types of complete proteins, and as noted, I would put quinoa here. Okay, that is a new one on the block. We can see various types of incomplete proteins, and so once again, really good table here. I'm not going to go into any specifics, asking you which amino acid they're low in. You should be able to provide examples of complete proteins. And note that most plant-based proteins are not considered to be complete. Now, vitamins are organic. There's approximately 13 different vitamins, and they're basically broken down into 2 general categories of either fat-soluble or water-soluble. The fat-soluble vitamins are A, D, E, and K, and those are absorbed with fat and stored in adipose tissues, and these are the ones that you can develop toxicities because they're not excreted regularly. Water soluble, these are excreted regularly, so they need to be consumed on a regular basis. Our B vitamins, vitamin C, are really good examples of those that are considered to be water soluble vitamins. Here is an overall table that describes fat soluble and water soluble vitamins. I'm not going to specifically ask anything about these, but it's a really good table if you're not familiar with the various vitamins out there and are concerned about, are you getting them? So you'll see good sources here. You'll also see signs and symptoms of either prolonged deficiency or excesses. Okay, so a lot of good information here overall. Now, when we talk about minerals, minerals are inorganic, and they play a pretty important role. There's 21 that are considered to be essential. Once again, essential means we must get them in our diet. Our body's not capable of producing them. If we look at the jobs of a lot of minerals, ions in blood plasma and cytoplasm, so sodium, potassium, chloride. If we look at the chemical makeup of our bones, so calcium, phosphorus. If we look at those minerals that play a role in both nerve and muscle activity, or those tissues we consider to be excitable, so sodium, potassium, and calcium. And then typically the recommended dietary allowance, this is indicating how much of each vitamin and mineral individuals need on a daily basis. So the RDA is really all about individual recommendations. Here is a table listing the major minerals. So this is somewhat similar to the vitamin table. Talks about the major role, foods that are high in these particular minerals, and also signs and symptoms of either prolonged deficiency or extreme excesses that are toxic. Now, fiber is important, and vegetables, fruits, whole grains are examples of foods that are high in fiber. And fiber is not digestible. That's an important thing to keep in mind. So we're not getting any energy associated here because it's not digestible. What fiber does do, it contributes bulk to feces. People that have a low fiber diet, they are a greater risk to experience chronic constipation, hemorrhoids, and diverticulosis. There is some evidence that individuals that are low in fiber intake may have a higher risk of colon cancer.